I believe it's the city page.
Okay.
Ellie, you're muted. Ellie, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
What?
No, Della is muted.
Oh.
See, I'm giving that instruction, Mayor. I'm telling everyone to mute themselves when you're not speaking so that we don't receive a lot of feedback.
Okay. Are we ready to roll, Ryan?
Welcome, everyone, to the Patterson Town Hall, Gun Violence Town Hall with Mayor Saya. At this time, it is my great pleasure to present to you our mayor of the great city of Patterson, Mayor Andre Saya.
Thank you, Della. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone who's joined us this evening for this critical conversation. I just want to start off by pointing out a 15-year-old by the name of Hadia Pendleton. And in 2013, she got the opportunity of a lifetime to participate in President Obama's second inaugural festivities. A week after she performed in those festivities, she was killed in Chicago, Illinois, a high school sophomore. And in the wake of her tragic murder, her friends, her high school classmates, started wearing orange. Orange is the color that hunters use so that they're not shot. Tonight, I'm wearing orange, along with my End Gun Violence pin that Michael Sean Spence gave me. Because quite frankly, this is a collective effort. I've stated before, we cannot police all of our problems away. We're going to need community organizations like the Patterson Healing Collective, like Moms Demand Action. We need Operation Ceasefire Committee to help us ultimately end gun violence. And in 2013, that same year, the Patterson Municipal Council adopted a resolution declaring gun violence a public health crisis. Well, here we are in 2020, and we have a public health crisis within a public health crisis. A pandemic, a virus that's mysterious to us, and that is unfortunately taking far too many lives. And so within this public health crisis, we're dealing with an epidemic of gun violence. And just to take you to where we were in Patterson in January pre-pandemic, through April, we only had 15 shootings in the 4-month time span. May, we had 17 shootings in 1 month. Clearly, this pandemic has created despair, depression, and desperation. Anxiety is at an all-time high. But what's also on an all-time high are gun sales. Guns have infiltrated our streets. And it's also driven up the demand for drugs as well. And what we're doing in Patterson is trying to get those guns off of the streets. To date, we have confiscated 172 guns. And we've made a considerable number of drug arrests. So on our end, we're doing what we can during this very traumatic and tragic time to get the guns and drugs off of our streets. But in speaking with my fellow mayors throughout the country, in large and mid-sized cities, they're experiencing similar levels of gun violence. And so at this time, I think it is appropriate to turn the floor or yield the floor to Michael Sean Spence from Everytown for Gun Safety, a gentleman I met over a year ago in Washington, D.C., when he presented on ending gun violence and gave me this pin, when I told him that, yes, it is an issue that we are looking to address in Patterson once and for all. And so from Everytown for Gun Safety, Michael Sean Spence, to give us a perspective as far as where the nation is concerned with gun violence. I turn it over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's truly a pleasure to be with you as well as my colleagues there in Patterson and with the community there tuned in. It's unfortunate to gather under these circumstances, but I'm happy to be here and to be of service. As was mentioned by the mayor, this is not a problem that is unique to Paterson. cities across this country have been grappling with an unprecedented crisis. In fact, dual pandemics, as was mentioned, COVID-19, as well as upticks in gun violence. COVID-19 has exacerbated many of the underlying causes that we're all aware of that drive violence, spikes in unemployment, health inequity, economic downfalls, and of course, the stress of not knowing what's around the next corner. Patterson has experienced nothing unique in comparison to a number of other cities, in that May did bring a large number of shootings and homicides across the country. And it's really illuminated the need for programs like Patterson Healing Collective and other community-based groups, violence intervention programs, and the support services that at-risk individuals rely upon, many of which were shuttered or reduced due to COVID stay-at-home orders, which hindered many of these groups' access to the main individuals that we know drive the violence. But at the same time, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And the light is in the progress that was made up until this point. I'd be remiss if I didn't note the great progress that not only Patterson, but cities across this country have achieved up until this moment, identifying and supporting those evidence-based strategies that we know work, and truly reducing gun violence and safeguarding life. At every town, I get to work with communities across this country, supporting groups on the ground, elected officials like your mayor, as well as community members and stakeholders who are invested in these strategies. And it's my goal to continue to work with your city moving forward. I'll share a little bit about what's been happening in New Jersey. And I rely greatly on UCR data provided by police departments, as well as the Gun Violence Archives, which does a great job of capturing the day-to-day gun violence. New Jersey, in particular, has experienced a 26% increase in firearm deaths and a 6% increase in firearm injuries this year between the months of March and November. According to the Gun Violence Archives, Patterson has experienced an 83% increase in firearm deaths and a 35% increase in firearm injuries during that same period of time, due to many of those underlying drivers that I mentioned. Looking forward, there is an opportunity with your mayor's leadership and with all of your involvement and support to support many of the strategies that have already been in place in your community to hopefully tamp down this violence and to truly safeguard life going into 2021. I know that we have had, the mayor and I, a number of very robust conversations about identifying direct supports to your groups on the ground, and we look forward to exploring that further. But in the short term, the people really are the power. And as long as we as a people are invested in reducing violence and safeguarding life, there is a path forward that we can get on right now towards progress. And that means identifying these resources, identifying at-risk individuals, connecting them to the best of our ability, supporting police investigations into known shooters, recent shooting incidents, and supporting the solving of these homicides, as well as centering the community-led efforts, one, that provide an immediate response to violence. I'm talking about Stop the Bleed programs, street outreach programs that respond to incidents when they occur, but then also long-term stabilization supports that wrap survivors of violence in the services we know they need and that can reduce future harm. So I look forward to a conversation on this call about how we as a community can do that together.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate the fact that you've taken a vested interest in Patterson and you just haven't spoken about the fact that you want to assist our city. You've been actively involved and it goes beyond conversation. So we're looking forward to continuing our collaboration with you and our partners at Everytown for gun safety. At this time, I'd like to yield the floor to a gentleman that I'm sure you've seen who provides daily updates with the governor. And I'd be remiss, Colonel, if I didn't express our gratitude to you for your exemplary leadership during this very trying time. And so, from the New Jersey State Police, we're honored to have with us Colonel Pat Callahan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everybody else who's on the call. Director Spezial, I know we've been on the phone for a few times over the last few months, and I think, and we could go through statistics after statistics and point out around the country the uptick in shootings is not a unique to Patterson. Chicago's shootings are up 71%, Philly's up 50%, New York City 101%, the whole state of New Jersey 23%, Los Angeles 25%. But I think the reason, and I hope the reason why you asked me on the call was to outline what are we doing about it. And that's where that partnership and that teamwork comes in with not only our federal partners at the U.S. Attorney's Office and ATF and DEA. And I point to those partnerships and those relationships, which I think are key. And I think I think it's a multiple pronged thing. I do think the pandemic has played a role. I think the influx of weapons from other states have played a role. Narcotics lie at the foundation of a majority of these shootings. And we pat ourselves on the back sometimes when we take down a heroin mill, but sometimes we create a void and we create a space for that battle now to go on in a neighborhood. Now who's gonna own that street corner to sell heroin? So we don't wanna be creating that environment. So that's why our core stat platform is phenomenal, where we get together and share intelligence, realizing that violent recidivist offenders are just that. Whether they're in Patterson, Jersey City, Trenton, when you have shell casings recovered in Jersey City that match shell casings recovered in Trenton, that means that you probably have multiple shooters that are sharing a weapon. And so that's why our ballistics analysis, that's why that real-time crime center updates are phenomenal. And CoreStat certainly plays a vital role in that. Patterson has a violent crime initiative, another phenomenal interagency partnership. We have those mobile deployment initiatives where we go out and look for those fugitives that are violent, that we need to get off the streets. I think the license plate reader data and that sharing environment is key to solving crimes, and to your point, Mayor, getting those violent criminals off the streets. And I think the fact that Patterson has embedded detectives in the real-time crime center just speaks to the efforts that we do. And we could send in marked troop cars and uniformed troopers. We could have crime suppression plainclothes detectives. We can work with, as I said, the DEA and the ATF. Those multiple pronged approaches are all geared towards reducing gun violence. But we've seen an uptick, whether it's the Turnpike, the Parkway, all of our troops. The amount of weapons that we're seizing off the highways is up. I think of the 53 weapons from January to June that were recovered in Patterson, 4 of those, based upon the analysis, were used in previous shootings. So again, I know we've also talked about the hospital intervention, that victim that ends up in an emergency room is very likely to, 1, end up back in the emergency room or in a morgue, or 2, go out and retaliate. So what are we doing at on that piece, and what are we doing with our youth? So all of those initiatives that we collectively take on are critical. And like I said, whether it's Patterson, Newark, Camden, Millville, Atlantic City, the fact that communities around the nation are sharing in that misery should not offer any one of us comfort, quite frankly. And I know it doesn't, because that misery loves company. That's not our role as public elected officials, as public servants. Our job, when we raise our right hand and take an oath to protect and serve, we need to do every single thing that we need to do while still treating people with compassion and according to the Constitution, but making sure that that we make sure that we keep our folks safe. And the last thing I'll end with, the sad trend that we're seeing is that the shooters across our state and nation are becoming much younger, under the age of 18. And that has a different implication because the juvenile justice system has a little, is a little more lenient. But I think the older violent recidivist offenders know that. And rather than go out and commit a crime, to hand a gun off to a 15 or a 16-year-old is something that we need to combat as well. So I'm honored to stand shoulder to shoulder with everybody on this call, with you, Mayor, with Director Spezial, with the Chief, and really, that's what we need to do. This is not about the color of our uniform or the patch on our sleeve. This is about a collective force multiplier to make sure, regardless of where you live in the state of New Jersey, that you are safe, and that when you walk down to the local convenience store for a gallon of milk, that you come back to your house with a gallon of milk. So the state police stands, as I said, Mr. Mayor, shoulder to shoulder with you, and I'm ready to be a part of this town hall and answer any questions and lend all support possible to the city of Patterson. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. And again, we are appreciative of the fact that we have state partners like yourself, federal partners that you've outlined. Also, we have county partners that are collaborating with us to reduce gun violence in Patterson. And a month ago, it was the Attorney General who announced that 2 drug mills were taken down in Patterson. Colonel, one of the concerns has always been creating that vacuum so that another gang could step right in and fill the void. But we're going to continue to be hyper-focused on removing the scourge of drugs and guns off of our streets. At this time, to give the perspective of Patterson and local law enforcement, is our Public Safety Director, Jerry Spezial. Director. You just have to unmute yourself, Director.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, it's great to be with everybody here. I echo what the Colonel said. He is a tremendous partner. I can tell you all on this call, the New Jersey State Police has done a phenomenal job and has been a true partner to the city of Patterson. There has never been a time that I've texted the Colonel, called the Colonel. It doesn't matter if it's a Sunday, if it's a midnight, it doesn't matter what time it is, Colonel. We truly appreciate everything you do for us, from the technology to the boots on the ground to the tech to the intelligence. Everything that you provide us is tremendous. And to all of the community partners, whether it be that hospital intervention, whether it be that crisis intervention, whether it be the Moms Against Gun, it's just a tremendous partnership. And that's what this takes. It takes that tremendous partnership, because the collaboration between us all will certainly unleash the power of the many. And that's truly what we need to do here. You know, looking at what the Colonel said about having younger people doing these shooters and then dealing with the juvenile justice system is something that we need to get in front of. We do have violence interrupters in the city of Patterson. We do have a hospital-based intervention program. We do have an opioid response team that we're standing up. So we're doing both sides of this equation. We're doing the enforcement side. We've seized over 175 guns this year, probably upward in 185 with this week alone. That's a lot of guns. We don't grow guns in Patterson. They're coming here, and the troopers are picking them off, whether it be on the turnpike, whether it be on the interstates. They're hitting them, and we're still getting guns that are coming into the city of Patterson. And those guns are mostly illegal guns, and whether they're stolen, whether they're bought as a straw purchase, you know, in Pennsylvania or other states, that's what we're seeing. And we're out there focused on the narcotics trades because of the narcotics, the gangs, the guns, they're synonymous. We all know that. So we are doing everything we can to work in collaboration with everyone that we possibly can to make a safer city, to make a safer Patterson. the mayor and me speak every single morning to talk about, what are we doing next? What's the next step into reducing gun violence? Because this is, like you said, Mike, this is another pandemic. Yeah, we've seen this increase because of, COVID, and we look at it that way, and we look at it as a statewide crisis, a national crisis, but we also have our own crisis, and that's the gun violence. So we are using an early extra protection initiative that we have out there. They've been doing a tremendous job using evidence-based policing solutions to make sure that we clear those corners, making sure that we don't have a victim-rich environment on the corners. We're also out there making sure that we're focused on those that are most likely to carry a gun. We can't arrest our way out of this problem, but we certainly can make sure that we don't have people on those corners, because we do create that vacuum that the colonel was talking about. When we take that drug entity away, somebody comes back to try and take over that neighborhood, and then there's somebody that doesn't want that. And the hospital intervention has been tremendous with us to reduce that today's shooter becoming tomorrow's victim, or vice versa. So we are all in, we are boots on the ground, and we are willing to work with anyone that we can to make this a safer city and to reduce gun violence. So I want to thank everyone on the call. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am committed. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We appreciate the leadership as well. At this time, we're going to shift the focus from law enforcement to our community-based organizations. Because as I stated earlier, we cannot police all of our problems away, and we do have partners that are laboring in the vineyard. And we will turn first to Operation Ceasefire and the president, Pastor James Sagan.
Good evening, Mayor, and to the panel. Can you hear me all right, Mayor? Okay. Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with the distinguished panel. Truly, Ceasefire continue to move forward, and the endeavors of getting rid of these illegal guns, as well as trying to stop the next shooting in our town particularly. There's been a lot said. I just want to say this, that in our endeavors, we're looking forward into the future, and that future endeavor, we're looking to, with assistance, of course, trying to reach our younger teenagers, as it was mentioned by the colonel and the director, Spezial, and being a former chaplain in the youth detention center. I just found it ironic how they began to merge Essex County with Passaic County, and then going forward into that avenue where we understand that gun violence along with drug goes together hand and foot, and we have to look at some things to get that separation and try to reach our youth to turn them around, and knowing that they're being used as pawns, make our job even more harder. But again, boots on the ground is one of the best things, and all the alternatives for our young teenagers that's out there. We understand COVID, again, and the shutdown that this adds to. But I hear us also saying that our neighboring states, and particularly where these guns are proliferating through, plays a major role. So as we look at our partnerships from the colonel perspective as well as the director perspective, that we can try to do a better partnership with these other states that surround our city particularly, and our state, to try to get that help to prevent all of these guns. I know that this corridor is a hot one, so if we all know that, then we have to try to reach out to our other states to try to do better with these illegal guns coming into our city, and particularly the use of them. And as we look forward to trying to better that, broaden that partnership, I am thankful about, again, this panel that's here, that we had something that faded a bit, which is a Safe City initiative, where we did bring in these offenders, as it were, and address them directly on probation or whatever, that we can let them know that we are still not tolerating that. So, some things work and they were discontinued for whatever reason, and we have to go back to that to address. Because again, in a partnership, we look forward to making things happen, and things that work, we want them to work better. Because again, I would hate to see me going to get a container of milk and not making it back. And we know where these hot spots are in our city. And again, by us, being in the lead, community folk, offering help, offering things to help them to want to turn around, to let them know that, you're only harming yourself and your city. And then we're offering them another alternative. But we have to be visual, and again, the term boots on the ground, and and aggressively. If we know the areas that this continually happening, then again, not just a mobile unit, but a mobile force to let them know they're in this dwelling that, it's not tolerable. We can't tolerate the city continue being flawed with all this gun violence, and then, the repercussion is that they come right back and it's in retaliation, and it continues to happen. So we have to be more aggressive with it, and at the same time offering another avenue other than drugs, to add to the problem of this violence. So we're looking forward to making sure that as we move forward as a ceasefire, that and our collaboration, that we're up in the bar to make sure that we get the training that have those others that's new members of ceasefire trained to be able to go out as part of our outreach, as well as other avenues to reach our youth in school. So we need those resources to be able to, now that we are home, being homeschooled, to be able to tap into that resource through the education department, to let them know, to keep them informed there, that there are other alternatives than reaching for a gun. We talk about how important it is and how easy and accessible it is that, a gun can be used in Jersey City that was used in Trenton. Now, that's somebody's going up and down the highway with these guns. And again, we know where these blighted areas are, not just in Patterson, but Jersey City and Trenton as well. So we have to move forward in that avenue to, as we continue to sharpen. It says iron sharpen iron. And so as we look at iron sharpening iron, that we become a movement right here in this city to branch out, to take over the city, to restore it. Yes, we can restore our city, and I'm happy that this panel is here, that we can, there's room at the table, because we all have a role that we play, and we encourage each other to stay encouraged as we go through this endeavor. I just want to thank each and every one of us for being here, and particularly my administration, that's second to none. And I thank you, Mayor, and your administration there, and the Colonel, the Director, and those that, when you call on names, you leave out people, but the panel, period. Because together we can make a lot happen in this city and in this state. But it takes us to remember that, as it's so been pointed out, that our youth are being turned the wrong way. And we have to turn them back around. And yes, we are our brother's keepers, and we have to know and realize that it takes us together to make this happen. That the police can't do it, Mayor, you can't do it, but it takes us collectively to do it. Understanding the crisis, I know that, being one in crisis, that our police is hurting locally because of the fact that they're exposed to COVID with COVID as well, and that creates another vacuum. And we want to make sure that that they're there, that they get the assistance that they need. Our first responders are caught in this as well. And if one get it, then that means 2 or 3 have to shut down, and we have to pick up the pieces from that to realize that it's important that we are again looking out one for another, and with a relationship with our boots on the ground police officers, that they know that we care for them and that we're about them, because there's another impact behind that we have to be mindful of. That everybody don't like the police and they use every avenue they can to turn and blame. So we want to make sure that we keep our eyes open and don't let everything slip through the crack, such as these that are trying to do destructive things in our city and with our police and with with our first responders, period. And that's what's important too, because Ceasefire is about quality of life issues, and gun violence, is very important. And we're seeing death after death of gun violence, and not only just death, but many of them have been wounded, and it's just blatant things that's going on in our city and in our country. But we're not to give up, but we're going to have to dig deeper, Mayor, and I thank you for this time and the panel. And we have to remember that presence is important. So we have to be very visual to let them know, not on this corner, not on this block, and that we're hand in hand with our officers that's out there trying to bring this to an end. So thank you for this time.
Thank you, Pastor. And you're right. I mean, this pandemic has upended our lives. It's affected the youth being out of school, after-school programs, not what they once were, also summer programs. So we have to take into consideration some of those factors. And you also raised the question about mistrust of police. And in speaking to police officers here in Patterson, anecdotal information indicates that people are less likely to cooperate now as far as investigations are concerned, and that's posing a problem as well. At this time, I want to turn it over to another grassroots organization that has been a presence in Patterson, and that's Moms Demand Action. And representing that outfit is none other than Kim Kramer. Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the panel for having moms represented here. I am not, like my esteemed colleagues on the panel, someone who is in a position of authority, but rather someone who's in a position of a grassroots type organization, specifically Moms Demand Action. Moms is 6 million strong nationwide, and it's made up of mothers and others who decided they didn't want to sit by and just watch. They wanted to do something. And as a born and raised Pattersonian, that's why I got active with moms and wanted to make the community that I live in, Passaic County in particular, in Patterson, better. Moms offers opportunities for anyone who wishes to get off their couch and do something about gun violence in a constructive way. For example, you can volunteer to participate in the Be Smart program, which helps educate parents how to ask tough questions so they keep their kids safe in homes. You can be a part of the Survivors Network, also which is part of Everytown for Gun Safety, and work in support of people who need help because they've been victims of a crime, in gun violence in particular, or because they lost someone, and that's a victim too. You can work to have gun legislation come about to protect us and to keep us safe as well. So there's lots of opportunities for people like myself, just the average person looking to get involved in a program that helps support Everytown for Gun Safety, the mayor, the grassroots community to make our city better. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Kim, and we appreciate your passion for this cause of reducing gun violence, and also extend my gratitude to the other members of your organization that have been a presence in Patterson as well, and also say hello to your father for me. Her father is former Mayor Lawrence Pat Kramer.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. At this time, I want to turn it over to another community-based organization. A year ago, it was announced that there's a grant awarded through the Victims of Crime Act, and this is the Hospital-Based Intervention Initiative. And it's led by Dr. Lisa Chowdhury. She has with her Casey Melvin and Teddy Martinez. And they call themselves the Patterson Healing Collective. And I had an opportunity several weeks ago, actually a few weeks ago, to visit their office and saw the work that they're doing and get a better explanation as to what it is they're doing to not only reduce retaliation, but reduce re-injury as well. And so at this time, I'm turning it over to the Patterson Healing Collective.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to all the panelists for joining us, having us join you guys on this panel. Also, more importantly, I want to thank the community members that are listening right now, taking time out of their busy schedule to give us their attention. And I hope throughout this discussion, you guys can learn more about our program. So I'm Dr. Lisa Chowdhury, the director of Paterson Healing Collective. I have my brothers with me, my partners that have years of experience in this work. So first, I'll hand it over to my left.
How you doing, everybody? My name is Casey Melvin. I'm the Assistant Director of the Patterson Healing Collective, a hospital-based violence intervention program. I've been doing this anti-violence intervention work for over a decade with 2 feet. I was honored to serve with a lot of the people on this panel, so I'm appreciative that the same faces are still active and ongoing in this fight against violence. As we know, Patterson has more than its fair share of gun violence, and we're ready and willing and able, and hopefully by the end of this discussion we'll have more resources in regards to our fight against the violence in our community.
All right, move on. My name is Teddy Martinez. As KC, we've been doing this for over a decade.
Lean in a little bit. Yeah, coming out.
Sorry. Teddy Martinez, as KC stated, I've also been doing this on boots on the ground for over a decade. I'm the hospital violence intervention coordinator / case manager supervisor here at Patterson Healing Collective. I myself also is what we call a credible messenger, which we will get into a little later. One of the things that I've learned during this process is that everything that I thought I knew about violence, I don't know about violence, because the face of violence changes every day with these youth. As Reverend Pastor Staten, James Staten said, the shooters and the mayor stated, they get younger and younger. I myself was a victim of 11 gunshots where I was shot 11 times. And through my experience, that I try to educate these young men about the issues of what they're going through in the city, as well as to avoid any type of retaliatory acts or re-injury.
So just a little overview about our program. One of our main goals is to take away the dehumanizing and criminalizing language behind those that are mostly impacted by violence. One of the things that we try to do when we came out, which we just started taking our first case like a month ago, is we want to spread the knowledge about trauma. We want to spread the knowledge about healing. Our goal is to make sure that the community understands what trauma is. We've been fortunate enough that no matter where we've gone, the community has embraced us. Throughout this conversation, I want to make sure that we can make sure that the dialogue is clear, that people want help, right? They don't need to get locked up. There doesn't need to be all this investment in zero tolerance on policies, because the reality is some of these young people are picking up guns because they need to survive. There needs to be more of a reallocation of resources so that these youth and these young men and women can go to the store and walk freely without being, injured or have a threat of injury. There should be more jobs. In our work in this last month, we've seen, the impact that the housing crisis has had. Just a little overview about our program. We are the first hospital-based violence intervention program in Patterson. We're partnering with St. Joe's Hospital. And with our program, even though we're not in the hospital as of yet, starting next week we will be, but because of the knowledge that the community members have about us at this moment, they're just coming to us, which tells us that they want healing. Even people that are returning home from prison, they're hearing about us, and and they said that they want healing. And I just want to make that clear because throughout this dialogue and this conversation, I want to give some hope. All right, this is not something that we should feel that there's no hope for, no solution. There are solutions. We're seeing them in our office. We're fortunate enough that we have resources where we can, if a person is hungry, we can buy them food. If a person needs resources such as clothing or housing assistance, we can support them with that. So what we're seeing in this office is breakthroughs. In just a month that we've been here, I don't know if many of the community members have also seen, we've been doing these stop the bleed trainings throughout the city. And if you look at the videos, these are young men and women that are excited to know how to keep their families and their friends safe, right? And these are those hot spots that people most often send the police to. And all we are is sending love. And I know that sounds corny and that sounds crazy to people sometimes, but it is that simple. Right? It's that simple that we go to them and put our hands out there and reach out to them because they're ready for help. So I just want to make sure that, you guys understand throughout this process of when we're talking that we're kind of over what's the problem area of what's happening. We're ready for more solutions. Our program allows us to work with 60 individuals per year. And in addition to that, it's only with survivors of violence that are impacted by gun and stab wounds. We are not able to prevent violence with this grant. However, can we utilize those resources so we can expand or build the capacity of our program? Absolutely. So in this dialogue, I hope that throughout this conversation we can talk about where we move forward. Because through this process, as I said, we are veterans in this. Even though our program is new, we have a collective, group that has years of experience in this field. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we have more solutions to offer than just, doom and gloom. We want to make sure that people understand that there is hope. So before I end, I want to make sure that Ted and Casey kind of tell you guys about the process of how our program is run.
Okay, so one of the processes is, so once an individual enters the hospital, well, we work collaboratively with the hospital staff, the trauma surgeons, and also some of the support staff within the hospital I just want to make sure you guys hear me because I'm seeing that tech support is saying that we're not able to hear you. Are you guys hearing this clear?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Alright, so, Reverend Board, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things that we do at Patterson Healing Collective is, my job as a coordinator, once when we get an alert, we work collaboratively with the hospital staff, meaning the trauma surgeons and nurses. And we also have our own social workers that work with them in the hospital. We get a medical alert from the hospital alerting us of a gunshot victim or a stab victim. Once we get once they stabilize that stab victim or gunshot victim, they alert us, and then our social workers go in and do an assessment to see if and define our service, Patterson Healing Collective service to these individuals. Once they do that, they call myself and I go in and do a 5-quick needs assessment to find out what their individual's needs are. However, I just don't do a needs assessment. I'm what they call a credible messenger. So my buy-in with a credible message is I'm going to read it because I don't remember it all. I know what a credible message is, but I want to give you guys a more definitive. And would you would please indulge me for this. Credible messengers are neighborhood leaders, experienced youth advocates, and individuals with relevant life experiences whose role is to help youth transform attitudes and behaviors around violence. They serve young people who need to go far beyond the traditional mentoring program, approach and companionship, confidence building, and typical academic, social, and career guidance. They are able to connect with the most challenging young people because they are from this community. They are formerly incarcerated. They have turned their life around. They have demonstrated integrity and transformation, and they are skilled in training and mentoring young people. Now, a lot of our training we have got training from across the country from different organizations. And one of the trainings myself as a credible message, because I've been in justice about where I've served time as well. So not only have I served time, I'm also a victim, as I stated earlier, a victim of the shooting. And my goal is not just to provide services as we do as far as driver license, housing, food, clothes, support. We help them with their voter application. We do another thing, like Lisa stated earlier. Now what we're seeing is that we're seeing an influx of individuals who's just coming home. They're hearing about Patterson Healing Collective and they're coming to us for other services of entry. However, what we do, we still use the referral process we have helped those individuals. We're not turning anyone away. And not only that, I need to add this as well. We are out, boots on the ground, as the mayor stated, the orange. And we choose the orange for that very same reason he chose the orange. So when we're out there in those hot spots, dealing with these individuals who are the hard-to-reach individuals, we don't want to get shot neither. We want to be safe. We want to keep our team safe. Our team is very well, they qualify. Our team is made up of credible messengers. Our overall goal is to, again, not just to provide service, but we also work to prevent retaliation and re-injury. And one of the things that she said over the last month since we've been established, we have not been fully in the hospital yet. However, we have been charged to the point where she has to tell us to slow down because we're getting so many individuals that's coming in, and we still want to be able to serve everybody with a quality service that we have been doing.
And then Casey has something to add yet.
Okay, once again, good evening, everybody. Again, I'm Casey Melvin, the Assistant Director of the Patterson Healing Collective, and I want to touch on some important things as well as attach what I'm about to say, what Dr. Lisa and Teddy Martinez has said regarding the population that we deal with. You know, we deal with victims of gun violence who've been either shot or had serious stab wounds, but our services have not been limited to just that population. We pretty much received anybody who came to us for support. We've supported people who came home from incarceration, or individuals who are out down their level or short on resources, with establishing identification, with getting food, as well as general needs, VCCO, victims compensation funding with the application and things like that. Pretty much any social service or any service that an agency can provide by way of our support, and that's very important. Even though our charter is specific, we've still, reached out to those needs because we understand that to resolve the issues of gun violence requires a holistic approach. And not only a holistic approach, but what I like best about the Patterson Healing Collective in St. Joe's Hospital, that we give the perspective, we address the perspective of healing. On staff, we have 2 social workers who deal with trauma. Their specialty is trauma. And I had to learn myself that a lot of times when these individuals commit act of murder or act of violence, it's usually a result of undealt trauma, unaddressed trauma. So our agency, which from my experience over a decade of doing community anti-violence intervention work, that was the missing component. We never dealt with the why. We always dealt with the result of what happened, but never the precondition of why the individual did that. So finally, we have an organization, not this taken away from any other organization, but I was fortunate enough to deal with an organization who dealt with the traumatic part, the psychological part of these individuals, and provided healing. The most important element, I think, is healing. Also, the resources, Mayor and Director Spezial, and even Staten and the gentleman from Everytown, you guys know very well that resourcefully and service-wise, we fall short. Staten, we can write books on this topic about how ill-equipped we are with providing long-term services, with dealing with case management, right? And dealing with the needs after the incident has occurred. Our organization is fortunate enough to have enough resources to carry the person beyond the incident, right? Or to deal with them after the incident has occurred. I know personally, like when we talk about the 20-some-odd individuals who were murdered and the over 140 people who were shot just this year alone in 11 months, we know, I know at least, I gotta say, 60 to 70% of them, right, personally. If I don't know them, I know their family members, so it affects me and us, our team directly. Our credible messengers are individuals of that element, right? Our staff is individuals of that element, so we identify and relate to them. And I believe that we have not the complete answer, but we have the opportunity to change the condition, but we need more assistance. We need more support. We need more resources. We have a plethora of ideas and some solutions to offer. Hopefully, this is an opportunity for us not just to talk and go back and forth and identify the issue that we're facing, because we can all do that, right? Social media does a great job in telling us what's wrong with Patterson. But the Healing Collective right now, we want to be a part of how can we make it better? How can we move forward? How can we stop the next shooting of Reverend Staten? How can we heal those who have been victims of trauma? How can we give support to those who have been victimized, right? That and avoid retaliation, because I know when we had the conversation with the prosecutor's office, right? A large percentage of these shootings are a result of retaliation. Who's doing the mediation? Who's sitting the warring side down at the table and having a conversation with them and informing them on how this is not right, how it's not normal? Because a large percentage of our population is normalizing this violence, right? That's why an organization like Patterson Healing Collective is important. That's why when Director Spezial and the mayor and every town for gun safety tells us, right, that listen, let's work together. Let's see what we can do. Let's not waste this time with this opportunity on working together and combining all resources. Mayor, you are in a very powerful position. There's some things you can do, as well as law enforcement and the other people on this panel. Let's utilize this time to see what we offer, what you offer, and combine together with a unified remedy to address the violence, because it's not normal and it should not happen. And I believe that this is the time that we can do something about it.
Thank you, Patterson Healing Collective, Dr. Lisa Chowdhury, Teddy Martinez, and Casey Melvin. Yes, I believe as a result of this virtual session, we should continue a collaboration and obviously focus on whatever resources are available, and then leveraging my position, state police, whomever it is that's interested in, yes, your efforts in reducing retaliation and reducing re-injury. I want to thank all the panelists. At this time, I want to devote the balance of this session to any questions we may have. So Della, let's see if there's any questions. I do see that there's commentary in the chat room. And yes, that is correct to those that are participating, Ms. Jones, Ms. Young. Investment should be made in our youth. We've talked about how the shooters are becoming younger. And my administration is focused on recreation and improving our parks and fields. In fact, we've already addressed a number of them, and there are a number that we'll be addressing in the future. Hinchcliffe Stadium is going to not only provide recreational opportunities for our youth, but employment opportunities for Pattersonians who want to make sure that our residents are properly prepared for opportunities that may emerge as a result of the level of development that's taking place in this city. Della, are there any other questions? I just see a number of comments.
Mayor, I'm not seeing any questions at this time, but I think that it would be really informative for our community partners, such as Operation Ceasefire, Patterson Healing Collectives, and Moms Demand Action, if there's some contact information that they want to share at this time to provide the community with if they should need any of the assistance. I think this would be a great time for them to provide us that information.
Patterson Healing Collective.
Hi everyone. So if you guys ever want to reach out to us, we have a website with all of our information on there. It's www.pattersonhealingcollective.org. Once again, we take survivors of violence, specifically gun and stab wounds between the ages of 12 to 40 that reside in Patterson, New Jersey. Once again, before the night is over, I just want to make sure I hone in because my voice was muffled. That one of our clear objectives is to take away the dehumanizing language about this community, all right? When we call them shooters, gang members, and all these kind of things instead of survivors of violence, whether it's violence because of physical violence or violence by structural violence, we need to be clear on that, right? Because if we're going to move forward as a city, and my hope is that the community that's listening, we need to move forward, right? And the way we move forward is by learning why these things are happening, all right? So we have a radical approach, and we hope that the community understands that we're trying to bring hope. Because honestly, locking our problems away is not working, all right? So I hope that I want to make sure that we rein in on that. And like I said, and like my team member said, we have ideas and we have solutions, all right? We know what the problem is. We're ready to move forward and push that effort forward where we have solutions that are coming to the table.
And you've done a tremendous job, and I've witnessed it firsthand from, some of the people that you've dealt with, Casey and Doc. What I'd like to do is there a way that we could put something up, Della, perhaps so that they can get in contact with this organization? Because, like I said, the mayor, myself, we sat down, we listened. There was an actual victim from one of our situations, Della, that actually went there and asked for help and got the help that they needed. So I seen it firsthand. It's proven. To me, I'm a believer. So I'd like to see their information put up so that there's a way for the public to be able to get at this, because I think that their program is invaluable.
Yeah, and I see that it's been included in the chat, so
Yes,
thank
it has.
Okay, great. Thank you.
you for putting
Okay,
that.
Mayor. Thank you.
Operation Ceasefire, can you provide us with some information about your program for our listeners and watchers?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, we are on the website, as well as you can have the number of, is 862-262-0372 is our administrative number. But equally important is that we do have a website that you can go to, Ceasefire, Operation Ceasefire Committee. But it's important that we realize as we are collaborating that, when we mention the word crisis, being one of the crisis chaplains in our city, and that we have responded to a number of incidents, not just gun violence, but other issues that happen, as we alluded to the word COVID earlier, that we definitely have to think safety and be safe about whatever we do, particularly as we're closing in on a very special Pacific holiday called Thanksgiving, where everyone wants to come together. But as we are here for gun violence and trying to come together, and we know we all need resources, and it's important that we realize that resources is a part. This is our city, and that if we have the resources or not, that we still have to try to come together to bring peace in our city and to our city. So we must be very, very cognizant of that as we're moving forward, to know that we have to be safe, and being safe is important for us. Let me just, it's Patterson Ceasefire 2006@gmail.com. You can call 862-262-3642. Just want to make sure that you have that correctly.
Thank you, Pastor.
And again, Mayor, I want to thank you. It's Paterson Ceasefire 2006@gmail.com, and 862-262-0372 is a text. 862-262-3642 is a call. Mr. Mayor, I thank each and everyone on this panel. Again, thank you.
And thank you, Pastor, because we speak all the time, and I know what you do and how much you care. You truly care in what you do, and I appreciate you, and we all appreciate you. So thank you very much.
And I do see a question from Pastor Boyer about my position on defunding the police. I do not support defunding the police, but I do support investing in community policing. I do support investing in trusted messengers, credible messengers. I do support improving recreational opportunities and employment opportunities for our residents. I do support improving parks and fields in our city as well. Those are investments I feel that will yield positive results. So if there are no further questions, I again want to express my gratitude to everyone who participated in this panel discussion. From Michael Sean Spence at Everytown for Gun Safety, to Colonel Pat Callahan from New Jersey State Police, our very own Public Safety Director Jerry Spezial, Pastor James Staten and Operation Ceasefire, Kim Kramer and Moms Demand Action, and of course, Patterson Healing Collective. So thank you, Della, for organizing this virtual session. And let's go forward and not give in, let's dig in, reduce gun violence in our city. We owe it to our citizens to make sure that they know their safety is our priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. It was great to be on. Colonel, again, thank you for everything you do. You're never, ever not there at the end of that phone. Thank you. Thank you.
Honored to be on. God bless everybody.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.